Okay, guys, can you guys hear me?
I
Yes,
can hear you.
yes.
Oh, all right, we're broadcasting live. Welcome to eXp Nation, and we have the founder, Glenn Sanford. It is my absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to just share from your perspective how things are going with this great company, and honestly, just want to thank you for what you've created and the problems that you've solved in the real estate industry for us as as real estate agents and brokers. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this company. The short time that I have, it's been the most fun I've had in my 20 years in real estate. So I want to say thank you, first of all, and welcome you to our Facebook Live. This is our little format for just kind of introducing folks to eXp and our journey as we go along. Al, you have anything you want to say to invite Glenn?
No, thanks. I'm smiling more than I've ever smiled before any of the live broadcast. Honestly, I know you're such a busy person, and I threw it out there, and I told Jay, this was before you responded and said, yeah, I'll come on. I said, hey, just so you know, I know we really didn't have anything going for Wednesday, but I asked Glenn if he'd come on, our live with Jay and Al, and he said, and then I'm like, I doubt he's probably not going to have the time because I think he's in New York, and then you responded yes, and I was just excited and appreciative and grateful. So I'm excited to have you.
Well,
Welcome.
awesome. Thanks for having me on. I've been watching you guys' obviously Facebook Lives here last few. It's been you guys are quite contagious with your enthusiasm. So
Hey, well, you made it easy for us.
Yes.
good stuff.
It's been a blast. Glenn, I don't think a lot of people really, maybe a lot of people don't know your story. I heard a few pieces of it that I hadn't heard before. And, you had some history with taking companies public. And, you had a foray into real estate. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing for a lot of the people that kind of tune into this. I think are a lot of the mega producers that are really trying to solve the problem of scalability in their business. And, that's a big challenge for all of us. And just talk a little bit about your experience, I guess, from working in the, publicly traded companies in the past to getting into real estate and how you kind of came up with this model and what problems you were trying to solve.
Yeah, well, quite frankly, I've been an entrepreneur literally since I think I was 15 years old. I had a software company called Sanware Software when I was actually in Oklahoma. That's
Yeah.
where I formed it. But in the late 80s, early 90s, I was involved in the public markets. I was a stockbroker. My dad put together a small firm. He and I actually worked on about 10 different companies, helping them do what's referred to as a reverse merge into a public vehicle. So they became public companies. Most of them, quite frankly, in retrospect, really probably shouldn't have went that route, but that's what they wanted to do, and so we helped them do that. I was involved for a period of time actually managing the financial bulletin boards and chat rooms on America Online back in the early 90s, and then I went on to form an online service in Western Canada called Interactive Cafe, and then in the late 90s, going into 2000, I formed a company called eShippers.com, which is an outsourced e-commerce logistic company, which we actually merged that into a public company and raised a couple $1 million for it. And it was just before the dot-com collapse. So we ended up cratering that company, and so I'm a dot bomber, and sort of, I think September 2001, I kind of moved back to Pacific Northwest, licking my wounds from that endeavor. In fact, the story goes, I literally was $40,000 more in debt after starting that company than when I started. So after we ended that whole thing, but and then I was just looking, to do. I was actually doing some web design work. I was also, did a lot of web projects. I actually built template websites for network marketers in the mid 1990s. But in 2001, I started doing website development work for local businesses, and one of the guys that I did work for was a local realtor, and he asked me to get my real estate license, and I really didn't want to, but he wouldn't take no for an answer, which is kind of a fun story. His name is Hugh Brawford. Still sells real estate. I think he's in his 70s now, but I was 35 at the time. He was 64, and he I basically said there's no money in real estate. He ended up saying, well, what's it going to take? And I said, I don't know.
That's how we all end up in real estate.
Yeah, and I said, I don't know, guarantee me $3,000 a month. And he actually said, fine. So I like one of the few agents that got a guaranteed income coming into the business. And
Right.
and then I said, I'm going to build this just online. And I actually wanted him to tell me no, by the way. I'm just going to build this online. I'm not going to be accosting my friends and family. I'm not going to sit open houses. And he said, fine, fine, fine. And then about 30 days later, he asked why I hadn't got my real estate license yet. And I told him that I get paid $60 an hour to do website development work. And he actually said, "Go, I'll pay you $60 an hour. Go study for your real estate license." And that's how I got into real estate. I was kicking and screaming not to get in this business.
Right. That's funny. We all fall into it a different way. It's funny what you mentioned. In the early years, Ben Horowitz wrote a book called "The Hard Thing About the Hard Things." Phenomenal book. And
Okay, yeah.
and it's it tells a story of going through the early the late 90s and the early 2000s. And he said back then it was being the CEO of a company was it was like being how did he say it, like being a baby, or you sleep like a baby, you wake up every 2 hours crying. and it reminded me, also reminded me of a quote that Steve Jobs used to say. I watched it, me and Michael Reese watched it on Bloomberg when they used to have these little sessions they would do. And
Right.
he said, you're never unsuccessful in Silicon Valley. There's no such thing as failure, because you become so much more valuable having had that experience.
Right.
Which I would just believe that has to be true in my mind. From how much did you take away from those experiences and learning as you went through all those experiences, and take that into what you've done here, which is obviously a phenomenal success.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I did the math on it. I think I started in some form or fashion 17 different companies, literally since I was a kid. And every one of them I learned something from. I learned basically all the stuff I wouldn't do again. So they were all significant learning experiences figuring that all out. So it was a lot of fun.
I definitely know the feeling. Not near at the level you probably have experienced it, but the failures the scars from the failures are the ones you always seem to remember the most.
Well, I spent a couple times. I remember in the mid 1990s, I ended up cratering a company. Obviously 17 companies, most of them didn't do well, and I literally remember, beat up, going, man, I'm going to just go get a job. I'm just going to go get a paycheck. This being an entrepreneur sucks, and I didn't. I was depressed for probably a 3 months or so before I could get caught, out of that. And it's like, hey, and my dad always taught me that it was riskier to take a job than to create a job, and so that was sort of always my MO that was in the back of my mind, and so for me. Failure was taking a job.
Yeah, as most of us entrepreneurs, that's definitely the feeling. So
Yep.
so 08, 09, or like really 07, 08, you were in real estate, and then in 09 you decided to really create this company. Tell me about that. I mean, first of all, 07, 08, I mean, for anybody who's watching that was in 07, 08, it was a challenge as it was. I mean, it was the hardest time of my life. In real estate. So I mean, you were going through the downturn and building teams. Is that where did you accelerate that to as far as your real estate career?
So I got licensed in 2002 with Hugh, and he and I had a 2-year deal, and I owned all of my websites, and I built a number of them, and I was generating a lot of leads. In fact, just my personal history in real estate. My first, I got April through the end of the year. I sold 17 properties just to clients I met online, and I did everything from the lead gen to converting the leads to everything else. I'm very systems oriented, so I was building out the CRMs and drip campaigns and how to follow up and the whole 9 yards. I actually developed a little system called the Buyer Tours system which really had to do with the fact that to build rapport with buyers, I'd run around with a camera around my neck and I'd take photos of anything that they were remotely interested in to build rapport. And so I did that. So my first full year, I did a little over $7 million in production, which was 2003. And then 2004, I was generating leads, more leads than I could handle. I was setting up some other websites. I was starting to refer them out, found out that referring leads out almost resulted in 0 closings. And so I decided that I needed to start to, in 2004, figure out where I could build a team. And so I went to Keller, started a team in Bellingham, Washington, ended up expanding to about 6, 7 markets total over the course of the 3 years from 2004 to 2006. So we were in Bellingham, Seattle, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Nashville, Tennessee, Portland, Oregon, Long Beach, California, and there was some other stuff we were incubating. In fact, 2007 was a great year for us. 2006 we did about 60 million production. 2007 we did about we actually were running a team-based brokerage at that point. So we'd actually broke out of Keller, started our own team-based brokerage. Did 73 million in production that year, and in fact 2008 up until August 2008 we were on track to do about 100 million that year, and so we're just powering through it. But of course August, September, the housing industry fell off a cliff, and so we went from closing a little over average 7-8 million a month to $700,000 in closings in October with $50,000 of expense per month.
Right.
So that was pretty tough. So we ended up closing a couple of our offices. The one in Phoenix, you probably met Brian Colhane and spent some time with him, but he was running the team in Arizona. So we moved everybody over to HomeSmart at the time there. We had all the agents in Seattle affiliate with Bellingham. We had the agents in Portland. I think we reaffiliated with Keller Williams, if I'm not mistaken. I can't quite remember how we juggled that around. But we just and then we just really circled the wagons on this stuff. And then early 2009, being that I was a tech guy and having that background, I'm like, why the heck aren't we building more progressive real estate brokerages? And I was sitting there. One, we couldn't afford offices, so and we had a team leader meeting in 2009. And one of the agents said, when do we get our offices back? Because we got rid of all the offices. I said, we're not getting offices back. The housing market is going to suck for a while. I didn't expect that the Federal Reserve was going to step in as broadly as they did. I mean, had they not, who knows how bad it would have continued to be. But we said we can't afford to have offices, so let's see if we can't build a compelling business model that's not dependent on bricks and mortar. And what would it need to look like? And we'd been big SEO guys up to that point, so we got great search engine rankings, but it was getting harder and harder and more expensive to get those top rankings. And what used to take us 30 days started to take us 90 days, started to take us 6 months, and we were getting to the point where if we're going to launch in a new market, it might take us a year and a half of doing SEO to get to the top of the search engines, and who knows what Google's going to do with their algorithms. So we decided that we wanted to build a brokerage rather than run the team-based model anymore. Figured the team-based model would get us into a new model, but we would taper that off over time. And
Glenn, I don't mean to interrupt you, but explain the difference between, in your mind, what the team and the brokerage model. What was the difference there in saying going from the team to the brokerage model?
So I was running a mega team model. All of our agents were on 50-50 splits, and so we were doing all the lead gen for those teams, and we had sales managers for each of the teams. We generated over 100,000 internet leads, and so we're really good at the internet lead gen, and then we also are really good at the lead conversion using what we had was the buyer tours system. So we actually referred to ourselves as Buyer Tours Realty prior to that. And so we were generating basically 98% of all of our closings were buyer-based and very little listing-based business. But for us, we had really pushed that as far as it would go. I mean, we could have maybe eked out another couple of years, but we were definitely plateauing in terms of our ability to manage and scale that business. And for us, one of the things that we were trying to solve for is the teams were a bit of a revolving door. And I think you guys talked about this last week a little bit. But I found that my teams tended to get up to about 13, 14 agents in any one team. We'd always have 4 or 5 people defect because they didn't like the 50-50 model. They thought they didn't understand how tough it was to get the leads to begin with. They thought we made it look too easy for them. And so
we don't know what that feels like.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we figured that, if we could build a model that truly scaled nationally, we would need to really go less expensive than a traditional real estate brokerage, meaning that we 70-30 and 6% franchise fees. It was a bit onerous for me when I was with the different firms I was with. I paid one market center, I think, $104,000, and I was in 4 or 5 at the time, and just saw that was just prohibitively expensive to scale with. And and then the fact that we could hire a broker fairly inexpensively. I mean, a lot of times our broker was also a transaction person, and so we went that direction, and it worked. That worked up until the point that it didn't work, and then when it didn't work, then we had to build a new model.
Right. So keep going there. This is great.
Yeah. So so it was really kind of this. 2009 was like a gift for us. 2008, 2009 was actually a huge gift for us because without that downturn, it didn't give us sort of that blank sheet of paper to build a new model with. And so, obviously we were scrambling. I mean, literally, short sold the house because we couldn't afford to make the mortgage payment, which, and we had to go raise some money. We raised about $150,000 or so in 2008 going into 2009 from different folks just to, again, keep the doors open and allow us to get into the next piece of the model. But the one thing about me is I'm actually better with other people's money than my own, because if it's my own, I don't mind losing it. But if it's somebody else's, I will work my ass off to make sure that I make it right. So we raised some money, and we committed to building a model that would scale, and that was that's what we were doing. And so lots of different things we were trying to solve for, but one of them was the revolving door as a team piece. Was what if we built a model where teams could actually sit on top of the platform? And so I was actually thinking about myself as sort of what I was trying to solve for. What if they sat on the platform, and when agents went to leave, there was still residual interest in that agent being with the brokerage and helping them actually grow and build their own team. So that was actually one of the things that we spent a fair bit of time thinking about, was what would that need to look like, and how could we help team owners and because empower their top agents on their teams who are going to leave them anyway, but instead of taking the approach of indentured servitude, which some teams basically make their agents sign really onerous contracts so they can never leave, to instead encouraging them to actually grow and build a business. And so that actually went into a lot of the thinking when we sort of built that out in 2009.
Yeah, I mean, Glenn, first of all, can you guys hear me? I was having a little bit of technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Are we coming in good? Good. The first word that comes to mind after what you just said was sustainability. And I think, it resonated so much with me. I know it resonated a lot with Jay as well, just through all the years that we've been, really trying to crack the code on building our new model out. And, when we saw that you had cracked it with, and one of the core values being sustainability, what I think you did, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you lifted the ceiling off of the team. The team had a glass ceiling. The team model had a glass ceiling, and because there was a glass ceiling, there was really, you get an agent up to either 45 or 50 transactions, and there was wasn't, and in that economic financial model, there just wasn't another level left because the amount of investments that team leaders make into their team with staff and everything like that.
Right.
And it was just brilliant. I think it'll hit that statement will maybe resonate with certain people who have tried to build a team or have built a big team. Anyone that's built a big team and hasn't lost the top producer either hasn't been doing it long enough or they might be fibbing a little bit. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah,
Right.
it is. Everybody runs a different style team model, but unless you figure out a way to empower your team members to become team leaders, you're going to lose your your best team members.
Right. This is something we learned as we tried to expand multiple different challenges that we ran into, especially there just wasn't it wasn't scalable. Everything we tried to do was very difficult to scale, as you well know. To attract top talent, and we all want to work with top talent.
Right.
We don't want to work with agents that don't make the calls and don't do the work. Yet our model is a team typically attracts, and we come by it accidentally. We hire agents to work on our team to handle the buy side of the business, so we can go do more of the listing side of the business. That's most of the mega teams that are out there, how they were actually formed, which isn't it isn't how we would coach someone to grow their business. So we don't actually attract the kind of talent a lot of times that we would like to work with, which is just an interesting problem that it creates in the model. But it really is, and I had a mentor tell me this one time, and it's leaders creating leaders creating leaders. And at the time, it didn't really make sense to me. But I learned real quickly as you're building an organization, how critical it is, number one, to create opportunity for people within the organization. And, number two, the importance of, cascading leadership down within the organization so that you actually have scalability in terms of the culture and how we behave and the servitude, mindset. It just makes it,
right.
It's an important, it's a critical ingredient to the whole thing. So that's something that I've found was very interesting. And looking at what you've built here and how many people are working at eXp Corporate and the culture that you've created with the leadership that you guys have and the agents and the alignment. It's just absolutely amazing how aligned every agent and every person in this company is, and just goes back to your mindset on leadership. I think.
Yeah, well, and one of the things obviously we're one national company. I mean, we're not a franchise. Nobody can buy a eXp franchise. They can certainly join the company, and help us all build it together. But when I was running teams, and I was doing expansion teams before there was such a term, expansion teams, and it was actually some guy, a guy named Buddy Rich, I think was his name. But he mentioned he had 5 teams. And I was just starting my one team, and I always solve problems uniquely, which is if I'm solving it for me, then if I can build, and it's sort of like, why can't I do it like a bunch of them? And so I actually went from literally starting like 2 or 3 teams almost simultaneously. Like I didn't start just one team. I just went I did the math though on it too, because I was like, there's no way in my one market I could make enough running a team to actually be what I was, thought I was capable of. And so I was saying, okay, well, let's go for it. So we did that. And what we did learn though is that in the franchise system, and you're trying to do an expansion team, you're dealing with broker owners with your agents inside of those team offices that each have a different understanding, and none of them like the fact that some of the commission dollars is going somewhere else other than their local market.
Right. That's an inherent flaw in the model.
It is. It is. And so I fought battles, and we'd have agents that would leave the team but stay at the office, and they were owing us commissions on particular deals, and they were refusing to pay. But of course, the local office manager, wanted to keep them, so they were back in the agent. And so we're like, it ended up just being just ugly. And so one of the things that when we were building the eXp model out was we wanted to build one ubiquitous platform that somebody who had that sort of ambition, or for that matter, a glutton for punishment, of going and building.
I was just going to say that.
So true.
That at least they're dealing with one model, and then the other, and what we found is that even some of those expansion team types, because of some of the other things we put in the model, they're actually they're less excited about growing in the multiple markets and more about let's just find some other agents that are building businesses in those markets and just help expand the eXp model. And so we've seen a couple people actually back away from expansion, even though the model makes total sense for expansion teams, to hey, let's not do that, get that brain damage. I think that's a term you used the other day, and look at the opportunity that the model presents for other opportunities.
And it does create, without a shadow of a doubt, it creates an incredible opportunity. And what do you think is, and what do you think we'll see in terms of these teams? And it's unbelievable. I mean, I've never experienced anything. I tell everybody this every day. Number one, I'm having the most fun I've ever had. Number two, I've never experienced anything like this. My phone goes off all day, every day, messages, Facebook Messenger. I mean, it's, Al told me it was going to happen, but it's gotten crazy.
Right.
Good, crazy, good, fun.
Mm-hmm.
But these are not just, average agents. These are the top agents, number one in their market, number two in their market. Some of them, one today, number one in the world on a 3-way text I get randomly, two of the numbers that weren't even in my phone before today. And some of these people I've met and worked with side by side, some of these people I've never met. And I already see that the mega producers are all coming. There's just it is the dominoes have fallen, if you will, and that's happening. So what do you forecast that we will see in terms of within this model, how it's going to evolve, and what do you see it some of these mega teams looking like in the future? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
The
new model. Yeah,
the new model.
Yeah, it is interesting. All the obviously the mega agents that are joining the model. It makes total sense. I mean, just economically, they have two choices. One is go out on their own, and we've seen some people do really well, expanding and they get up to 30, 40, 50 agents on their team, and again they're just one market and that's their thing. But in terms of the bigger opportunity, and I think that the thing is, if you're a true mega team, you're also a business person, and whereas I think the average agent just is not truly a business person. They're good at sales and they can make great income, but they haven't actually thought about business and really what's the potential and how do you reorganize and regroup on a quarterly, bi-yearly, or every 6 months, every year, and really see what the potential is to build a business. And by the way, not everybody can do that because obviously that's a finite part of the population, but that finite part of the population really controls a significant amount of the business that goes on out there. And so when they do the math and they figure out, okay, here's all the things I'm solving for, I think it just naturally they're going, as long as it makes sense, let's give it a shot, and because they're already hitting that glass ceiling. They're making a good mega agent team typically still only making net maybe $500,000, $750,000 a year for net. And
they're still producing a lot of times.
Right, because a lot of times they're not even making that.
Right. I would argue that they're not even making that, Glenn.
Yeah.
I mean, we know teams that are pulling over $4 million in GCI, and they're not netting that.
Right.
I mean,
so if you're not netting that, then you got to figure out other ways to create leverage because you're going to burn yourself out before you make it through to a point where your business is sustainable, and most mega teams aren't sustainable. So how do you leverage what you're building? And that's kind of what we were wanting to do as well. Is how do you leverage what you're building to create other income streams, other opportunities for equity and building other asset bases outside of the norm and yet still keep on doing what you're doing.
I just got to unpack this a little bit because the thing that I believe there's genius in simplicity. We've heard that over and over again. But the mystery in it is that I'm not 100% sure. I mean, obviously I've been learning the model. I know the model in and out. But what seems to have happened when we switched over to eXp and I closed my brokerage, things just got easier. And don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying it in a way where all of a sudden, things are just
Your problems
easy.
didn't go away.
No, they didn't. But and I don't want to say that because you never want to say the whole adage, don't take the easy way out. But
Right.
what I'm saying is it became uncomplicated. It
Right.
actually just became clear of the multiple different opportunities. When we talked about expanding, I never wanted to expand. It was never anything I wanted to do as far as outside of the Cleveland market. And now I'm talking about partnering with an agent. We already partnered with someone in Boca Raton. We're talking about partnering with someone in Atlanta, and it isn't expanding in the sense of expansion. Some of these agents don't need lead generation down there. They just they want to maybe share part of our administrative thing to get some of the administrative stuff, and they just don't have an administrator, and we can scale that, and it's more of
coaching.
a simple or coaching or whatever. But it I felt like before, if an agent didn't fit, they weren't a square peg to fit in my square hole, then they just weren't a fit, and there was other brokerages that they would need to go to. It feels like that's been lifted off. It feels like the simplicity is there, and I don't know. I can't put my thumb on what part about it was, but it's definitely exists in this model, the simplicity of it. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
I was reflecting on that just the other day, that exact same sort of thing. When you run your own business, obviously, I get your stresses. What used to be your stresses are now my stresses, because I've got to build this whole platform and infrastructure so that you can and you get to naively trust that we're going to get it right.
So that's what it is. That's why I feel so happy every day.
We're doing the fun part. We're doing the fun part, and he's doing the not fun part.
Thank you, sir.
And by the way, we have built such an amazing team of people, and we've got so many people that literally are, giving their all to make this a reality in the back end. So we've got our agent services team. Talk about a team that is just bending over backwards of the amount of growth that they're dealing with. I mean, nobody's ever seen this type of growth, not single brokerage growth. I mean, maybe there was a franchise that grew fairly fast at some point, but a single brokerage growing, 5, 6, who knows, how many, 7. I wouldn't be surprised if we got months where it's, in the thousands plus or 1,000 plus, and probably not that far away. And you think about, you got 20, 25, 27 people checking on licenses, MLS status, making sure that all this, everything's in. Got your broker review, conversations, all that stuff. And these are some amazing people they're doing that. And then we got, of course, the transaction staff. We got the education side. We've got, and then we've got the team, the IT and dev team. They're all working on solving all these problems in real time. It's literally like trying to change out the sides of an aircraft while it's flying. Trying to replace a wing mid-flight.
Right.
It's a great analogy.
Yeah, it is. I can only imagine.
Since you went there, Jay, we wanted to talk about growth, and Glenn just went a perfect transition into that conversation. Do we want to talk a little bit about the growth that we've seen since I know, Jay, I think you just crossed your 3-month anniversary.
Right.
I just crossed my 5-month, and then Glenn, we wanted to talk about 2018, because 2018, we can't be more excited. I think we mentally just got to a place where we were very new to the company, and obviously we met you, we trusted down in Fort Lauderdale, we trusted what we saw in you as a leader and the leadership team you have behind you, and we jumped on board full force. I closed my brokerage, Jay his, and we are all in. But just recently, what we've been seeing and witnessing has given us a new found confidence in really the vision. You want to unpack a little bit about the growth that we've seen just in the last 3, 4, 5 months, and what I don't know how you're prepared for the growth for 2018 if we dare go there.
Yeah, I pray every day. Pray every day. That's all I just. No, it's it's been pretty epic. I remember in I think it was December of 2015, we started to hit a little bit of a growth curve, and it really scared me. I was actually on the road in a motor coach actually full time, and and going, holy crap, we've hit a sort of, we could feel the hockey stick was starting to do this, and we're going, it's like, to some extent you just do the math on it, and it just gets crazy goofy in terms of the potential, and of course everybody talks about the hockey stick curve that they're going to be on at someday. We're like in the middle of it. I mean, there's no denying that the hockey stick exists, and so that does put a ton of pressure on systems, and we've got to bring in more people. We got to retool and everything else. But it's the nice thing is that I don't think we could do this if we had a physical bricks and mortar office. Like we don't have this is my office. You see this is where I work. I don't go to a physical office, just like we don't have physical offices in a traditional sense as a brokerage. But our entire team is also fully virtual, fully connected via the cloud and other and collaborative tools and technologies. And we're able to ping off of each other in real time, bring people in, help them get into the mix of helping agents with all the different parts of the business, and they're able to literally, join and within a day be in our office from anywhere in the country, helping us as an organization. So it's pretty cool, but it has pluses and minuses, and we work through all the tough parts. Even though one of our core values is fun, sometimes it's a little stressful around here. That wasn't a core value, but
don't take that. We as we were experiencing challenges as we were growing in AEA, one of the things that we had on our core values board was fun. And then there were times and you know what? It's not always going to be fun. And we took that core value down, and I kid you not, from that point on, it stopped being fun, for pretty much for like the next 2 or 3 years. I think it's important. I just think it's important. If you take the minute you stop focusing on that as being a value, it all even if it's going to be tough, it still should be fun. You still should love what you're doing. Even if you're going through some of the, the struggle of growth. But that's important for us for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And obviously, and I think you guys even mentioned, even just before we got on here, we went through a pretty significant exercise over the last year of really dialing in what are our core values, and to a large extent, the core values that we have are actually reflective of who we are as an organization. We didn't make these up and say these are aspirational core values, and so they were actually whether it be collaboration and transparency, integrity, innovation, agility, fun, sustainability, community, service. All of these are who we are as an organization, and none of it's made up. And I think that's really helped us really even define our culture and maybe steward the culture in a pretty meaningful way where it doesn't feel false or fake, because it is who we are. Right.
And you can feel it. You can feel it in the cloud. You can feel it, when you're on, the Facebook Workplace, and everyone is just so aligned and genuine to wanting to help each other. And it's just, it's impressive. Very impressive.
I was in the cloud today, and I love going there. I find myself getting in there more often, and they have a new, you can make your avatar do a different dance. There's a break dance now.
Okay.
And what's great to me is just walking around this campus, and just out of nowhere, you see somebody just break out in a break dance. And my assistant Brittany Roman, one of our leaders and an assistant on my team, she actually did a break dance in heels. Super impressive. In heels. I just had to clap for her on that one. That was just amazing.
Well, my avatar is much more athletic than I am right now. So
I think I wanted to ask a question of both you and Jay. I know that you're not officially the CEO. Jason Gessing, amazing man, amazing leader. I know that being as humble as you are, you would probably say you can't do this without, the support of amazing leaders like Jason and Vicky and all the leadership team. I have a question, and Jay, I'd love to know when we talk about fast growth companies, and it's kind of they got the 500 the fast growth companies, and you can win the awards, and I can't remember what it's called. Jay, I know NAEA's won it several times, and you were CEO when you won that award, and I'm just curious, how do you handle some of the pressures when you saw this hockey stick growth that we were talking about as a leader? I actually said to Jay one day when we were on one of our morning huddles, I said, Jay, for some reason, I woke up in the morning and I said, I wonder what it's like to be the day in the life of Jason Gessing, a CEO or a leader of a fast growth company with all the problems that we have coming at us and running our companies. Jay runs another company. I run another company as well. Right. And of course, we have this. I'm just curious, what do you do and how do you lead your leaders to be better leaders when you're not a fast growth company? You guys are, no pun intended, an uber fast growth company.
Exponential.
I mean, it's exponential. It's off the charts. What have you done? Because I know you've blinked over the last couple of years and you're just like, holy crap, did you ever just wake up and be like, what the heck did I just create?
Yeah, well, awesome. I was mentioning that December 2015 moment was a pivotal moment. I mean, I literally, excuse my French, but I'm going, oh shit.
It's a little scary, right? I mean,
it was my oh shit moment. It was like, and then I think it was late 2016, early 2017 that I felt to some extent almost like Neo in the Matrix. It's like I started to believe. I started. It's like in addition to it growing fast in 2015, late 2016, early 2017, it's like, oh my God, we've created a movement that's going to change the lives of thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of agents, and that so that was that. So we're humbled and working our butts off to build this thing. Not for us. I mean, obviously there's the financial rewards of building it, which doesn't suck. But but we're doing this because this was, I wanted to do something interesting, something that changed the industry, and I wanted to just see if it worked. I mean, the science experiment has turned into a full-on movement. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the question just because, I mean, there's people listening to this right now who maybe they don't even have a company or a team, so to speak, and they're an individual agent and they're about to grow a team. And I know, Jay, you've experienced this, and feel free to jump right in. But the day that you have that moment that you had in 2015 when you blink and you said, holy shit, I have 15 people that I'm responsible for. They're actually depending on me to get up, smile, get going. You know what I mean? You're all eyes are on you. You just created this thing. You may never have dreamed it to go this fast, this big, this fast.
Right.
But that moment hits you. And I think that, just so we're clear, at least for me, it's the responsibility that you take on.
Oh, it is.
It's about a response, right?
It is. I think even this last week or so, there's the responsibility becomes larger and larger the more we continue to grow, and I've had definitely some emotional moments, thinking about what this is. I mean, you going back to when I got into residential real estate. I mean, I'm driving a Ford Focus wagon with a crack in the window and a cigarette butt, in the car seat, and I'm driving around people showing them houses, and then you sort of think about where things are at and how this is really is changing the industry. And it's only 14 years ago, something, 18, anyway, 16 years ago that started that. And it's in 16 years, this is in what we're doing and how we're changing lives. It's there's definitely been some emotional moments along the way, just understanding how big this thing is.
Yeah, I bet.
I just I want to just make a point too to for everybody that's listening that doesn't understand how this is changing lives. As real estate agents, I think what most all of us that have built teams, and we've always wanted to help our agents, and we want to help them grow as people and grow in their businesses. And that's the whole reason that I think we always we gravitated towards coaching and consulting, really helping people grow businesses, because we just love to help people. And what's fascinating about this model, as real estate agents, you find yourself, if you're really successful fast, you find yourself in a situation where you're paying taxes back. You're trying to keep up with the taxes, and a lot of agents never really get past that, unfortunately. And then you get in this business, 10 years go by, 20 years go by. For me now, I'm in my 20th year, and you really don't have, you really haven't built anything of any equity. Whether you're building your own business, which I did and Al did, and we've done it more than one time. And there's no real exit strategy, and you go your whole life building something and working towards something, not to really have really built anything that's of any sustainable value. And I think that the equity program that you've created was so brilliant. As an agent-owned cloud brokerage, the ownership and that culture that it creates by us all having alignment and being owners of this great company was just one of the fascinating pieces of that. And then obviously, the ability and the reward program for agents who are telling other agents about this great company are two pieces that we've never seen and experienced in any company before. But everything put together, it's the most impressive model that I've ever seen. I've never seen a perfectly executed business model before. It's funny, Al, what you were mentioning. I've been a part of fast growth, but it's been by force. And we've doubled and stuff like that, but you got to force it, and you're pushing every day. And then it feels like, I told my wife this morning, I feel like I'm handcuffed to a rocket ship. As and right. I know, Glenn, every day it's got to feel like that. You couldn't turn it off if you wanted to. And that that overwhelming responsibility, like Al was saying, it's we feel for you, and we're behind you, and I can say that for the rest of eXp Nation. We are fortunate to have you as our leader, and we've got your back in every possible way.
Awesome. Well, no, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, and thanks for keep back in 2006, 7 that in that time frame, I was watching you guys. You guys were my the Kinder Reese, and I'm watching a bunch of stuff you guys are doing, and now it's really, really cool to now be in business together, be working on something together, because I spent a whole bunch of time just studying the models, and you were knocking out of the park early in your career, and just trying to figure out how you're scaling your business in Lawton, Oklahoma, which
I found those ceilings. I found the ceiling.
Yeah, but but it's a lot of fun, and it is I pinch myself every day, and there's definitely stressful moments. It's I don't recommend from a health perspective growing a company this fast, because it definitely can take a toll from that perspective, at least from my position. So that's the problem. One of my big things is just working on the health side this next year, because it's it takes. I'm up at about 6:15 in the morning, and I'm typically going till about 8, 9 at night, and just to keep all the plates in the air. So it's but we've got a great team. Mary Frances Coleman just joined us here a few months ago as our Chief Operating Officer, and she is just amazing. So she's basically committed to allowing me to sleep more at night. And she's been doing a phenomenal job. And obviously, we've got just a great team with our marketing department, and then Scott Petronas and the entire IT and dev team is just off the charts. Those guys are delivering updated solutions and systems all the time, and then streamlining everything that's going on. And obviously, you mentioned Jason and Vicky, and then all the growth leaders. I mean, between the Gene Fredericks and the Rob Flicks and the Darren James and the Brian Colhames and the Nicole Charles and you name it. I mean, there's just so many great people that are out there doing so much on the growth side, and we don't have any sales managers in the company. Zero.
Right. It's magical. It's honestly magical. Never seen anything like it.
Well, you guys both nailed it at the beginning of this Facebook Live when we talked about leaders leading leaders, and that really, I mean, that summed it up, without having to name them a regional, or sell a region or what have you, and
right.
Like some of the other positions that we've seen in other models. But man, I just appreciate your time. I appreciate you being vulnerable today too. I love talking to you. We don't get to talk to you that often, but you need to make sure you get that exercise in first thing in the morning. Get up, get that workout in.
Yeah,
we need you. We need you, brother.
Yeah.
Good stuff, well, guys. Thanks for having me on, and I'm sure. Well, I know we'll be chatting here soon. Seeing you guys in Las Vegas here in a couple months.
We'll see you there.
Okay.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right.
Yeah, and
great.
For those of you watching, come join us. Put all our fires together, make one big fire. And thank you again, Glenn, for being here today.
Dates?
You guys have
those dates for Las Vegas?
I think it's I have to go and look, but it's April like 5th through 7th or 3rd through 5th or something like that.
Las Vegas, come hang with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
JW Marriott. We'll be there.
Awesome.
Okay.
You guys have a great day.
Jay.
Thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Glenn. Take care.